Now that we know what a scatter plot is, let's take a look at how to make them, how to find its correlation or association, and what a trend line is, and how to write the equation for one that represents your data. So a trend line is basically exactly what it says. It's a line that follows the trend or the pattern of the data. There are 3 steps for how to write your equation of a trend line. You have to find the slope of your line. You have to use a point on the line to identify the y-intercept or b, and then you have to write the equation in slope-intercept form, which, if you recall, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where the m is your slope and the b is your y-intercept. So let's take a look at this example. This example says the table shows the average and maximum longevity years of various animals in captivity. So we're looking at animals in captivity like at a zoo or at SeaWorld or something, and longevity is how many years they live. So the column that says average is how long the average animal of that type lives, or most animals of that type live, whereas the maximum is how long the oldest one lived. So the first thing we want to do is we want to draw a scatter plot. So if you notice, I already have my scatter plot labeled with a title, animal longevity in years, and then I have my x and y axis labeled and numbered. My x-axis is labeled average, numbered by 5s, and then my y-axis is labeled maximum, numbered by 10s. So I want to put points on those locations on the grid. So the first point is 1247. So I'm going to find 12 approximately on the average and 47 approximately on the y-axis, on the maximum. So I'm going to make this bigger so we can kind of put the graph better, but I want it at 1247. Should be approximately there. The next one is 2550. That one's easy to graph because it's on the intersection of grid lines. The next one is 1540. 1540. Then I have 820. So 820 would probably be somewhere in there. I have 3570. I have 4077. 4161. And then I have 2054. So now that is creating a scatter plot. It's just putting the points on the data, on the grid. So if we make it smaller again so we can see it, if we're looking at it, we have an overall pattern from left to right where those points generally rise, they go up. So this would be a positive association. And if you recall from the last video, positive association means the more the x, the more the y. So in this case, the more the x would mean the more the average, then it would mean the more the maximum, the more the y. So what that means is the longer the average of the species lives, so the longer most of them live, the longer the oldest one is going to live, which makes sense, right? So then the next thing we want to do is we want to draw a line of best fit. A line of best fit is a line that follows the pattern of the data. Now, I'm going to make this bigger so we can see the graph, but we want to look at this, we want to draw this smart. Remember, when you write an equation, you need 2 pieces of data. You need the slope and you need the y-intercept. So if we look at our trend line, we don't want to draw a line something like this, because while that line goes up, it's nowhere near our data. So we want to be able to draw a line that goes somewhere through, or as near, as close to as many points as we can get it to be. So I'm going to follow a line, and I'm going to say my y-intercept is approximately 20. Okay, again, you can choose where you start your line. So I would choose smartly. So in this case, I chose 20. So in order for me to draw my line, I now have to pick another point to connect it to. So I'm going to say I'm going to connect it to here. So if I connect it to here, that means I'm going 2 lines up and 3 lines over. So my next part of my line is 2 lines up, 3 lines over. 2 lines up, 3 lines over. So if I were to connect my line it would look something like that. And that would be a pretty good trend line because it follows the pattern of the data. So I want to be able then to write my equation. So I'm going to use 2 of my points that I used on my trend line to find my slope. So remember, with a graph, you can make it using a right triangle. So I have my triangle going down until I can connect horizontally. And then my change in, remember, slope is rise over run. So my rise, I rose 1, 2. But it's not 2 because each line is numbered by 10. So it's really 20. And then I ran 1, 2, 3, which really is 15 because each known is numbered by 5. So I have 20 15ths, which I can simplify both of those by 5, so I can divide both by 5. And then I would get 4 over 3. And then my y-intercept, we chose where that was. I chose that it was at 20. So if I make the screen smaller again, and then we look at writing my equation, this equation should be in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And if you recall, the m is the slope and the b is the y-intercept. So all I have to do is replace the values that we just found. We found the slope to be 4/3 x plus my y-intercept, and I personally started at 20. So my equation for the trend line that I could use to predict for the average animal longevity or the maximum animal longevity would be y equals 4/3 x plus 20.